We are just 7 months away from the midterm elections, and the Republican Party has successfully ground President Biden's domestic agenda to a slow crawl, which, let's not forget, was always the goal. And they can thank Senators Sinema and Manchin for getting that done. Today, we saw the fruits of their labor. A new Morning Consult and Politico poll shows that voters who received the expanded child tax credit payments in 2021 are no longer willing to reward the party that gave it to them. An increasing number of them are now inclined to vote for Republicans. Democrats, who had a 12-point advantage with those voters in December, saw that lead evaporate. Because of Senate gridlock, President Biden has got to go it alone. This morning, the president announced an extension of the moratorium on federal student loan payments, interest, and collections through the end of August. More importantly, the administration also announced that it will give roughly 7 million borrowers who are in default a fresh start. That means that their accounts would be restored to good standing. Joining me now is Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. And Senator, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you in
person. You know, as somebody who took a really long time to pay back my student loans, and my husband, we're still working on, I mean, he got all of his, did his education through student loans. This is great news to me. But there are a lot of people who create a moral hazard argument against helping people with paying back their student loans. And what do you say to them? They're like, well, don't do that because, you know, I paid mine back. You should pay yours back.
So look, part of it is we have to remember who takes out student loans. It's not rich people, and it's not people who aren't trying. It's people who just weren't born into families that could afford to write a check for them to go to college. And yet, we want to invest in those people. Now, when I was hitting college age, the way we invested is we made those public universities almost tuition free. I went to college, graduated, $50 a semester, got my 4-year diploma and became a special education teacher. That opportunity is not out there today. So we say to young people, you need post-high school education, but good luck to you. The most we'll do is lend you some money for it. So they take on these loans. And the difficulty is now with the loans, 40% of them never graduate from college. You know, life happens. They have babies, they're working 3 jobs, their mom gets sick, they have to move. Do we really want to say, don't even try? Because that's what we're saying when we say you've got these loans now that you earn at a high school graduate's level, but you're going to have to pay back all this college debt. Or look at it another way. It's a race issue. It's a gender issue. It's an equality issue. African Americans borrow more money to go to school, borrow more money while they're in school, have a harder time paying it off when they get out. In fact, let me just give you one stat on this. And that is, we've now studied people who are 20 years out, and the average white borrower owes about 5% of what they originally bought. 20 years, they're still paying, but the end is in sight. The average black borrower, 95%. And it's got to look like you're going to pay until you drop. The president could cancel $50,000 of student loan debt, and if he did, that would help close the black-white wealth gap for people with student loan debt by 27 points. There's not a single thing the president of the United States could do to help close that gap.
Well, why doesn't he do it? Because the other thing is, you know, doing the moratorium and only extending it till August. There's an election in November. Good policy is often good politics. One of the things you hear the most about is student loan debt from younger voters who are now discouraged and don't want to vote for Democrats, and they would if they were interested. But this is an issue to them. Why not extend it? Why not do the $50,000? What is the political argument from the White House that you hear back about why they won't do it? Is it a Manchin Sinema thing? They'll get punished by Manchin for something else?
I'm not going to try to take the other side of this argument because I really just don't believe it. The bottom line is it's a way to help close the racial wealth gap. It's a way to help close the gender gap. Women now carry 2/3 of all student loan debt. And by the way, black women are the single biggest, they are carrying the biggest debt load of any group. So keep that one in mind. It's an equality opportunity, but here's the thing. Even if you don't have student loan debt, even if you don't know anyone who has student loan debt, which means there are like 4 of you out there, but no matter what, you still would be helped if we cancel student loan debt. And the reason is because this is about investing in our economy overall. In the same ways that we invest in roads and bridges, we invest in public education, because ultimately it helps us all. This student loan debt burden is keeping young people from moving out of mom and dad's house.
Yeah.
It's keeping them from buying
It's like
homes.
a mortgage payment.
It's keeping them from starting businesses.
Yep.
This is data out of the Treasury Department, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We help get rid of that debt burden. Then that frees up a whole lot more people to be part of this economic engine.
Yeah.
In other words, canceling that debt, it profoundly helps those people, but it helps our whole economy.
And those, you just described the people in the Democratic base, especially black women and young people, because the reality is, I can remember coming out of college and that automatic payment that gets sucked out of your bank account. That means you cannot spend that money on anything else. You can't invest in a business. You can't do anything but just basically you're a slave to that withdrawal every month.
Exactly.
I have to ask you something else. You are an Oklahoman. A lot of people associate you with Massachusetts, but you're originally Oklahoman.
Born and raised.
This law that's passed there, we just talked about it in a previous segment, that essentially bans abortion. Number one, I want you to comment on it. And number two, are you worried that if the Planned Parenthood side of things and the normal, those of us, the majority, if it's appealed and it winds up in the United States Supreme Court, that could be the vehicle for ending Roe v. Wade altogether?
So look, I grew up in Oklahoma, and I grew up at a time when abortion was illegal. But even as a little girl, I understood that women still got abortions.
Yeah.
Rich women just went somewhere else. They could travel and had plenty of access to abortion. And poor women went to back alleys. Understand that even if Oklahoma says we're going to prosecute people for trying to get an abortion, those abortions will still occur. It's just a question of how much danger, how much risk, and how hard this falls on the poorest and on the most vulnerable. I see what's happening in Oklahoma as just one more piece of evidence that an extremist Supreme Court is no longer just laying down the rules. They are emboldening people in the state legislatures to actually break the law. Right now, today, Roe versus Wade is still the law of the land.
Yes, it is.
And yet, the Oklahoma State Legislature is clearly just thumbing its nose at that law because it believes that ultimately an extremist court will back them up, which is why I'm going to pick up on what you said earlier, the importance of voting. You know, keep in mind, Roe versus Wade, we don't have to wait until we take back the majority in the Supreme Court. 2/3 of all Americans want to see Roe versus Wade as the law of the land. In a democracy, that means it ought to happen.
Yeah.
So we could pass it in the Senate, we could pass it in the House if we could get enough votes. So help us get rid of the filibuster. We actually already have the votes to support Roe versus Wade.
But you don't have
in the Senate.
60.
Get rid of the filibuster, and that's one of the things that we could do in order to do what the American people sent us here to do.
Indeed. Senator Elizabeth Warren, it's always a pleasure.
And it's always good to see you.
Thank you very much. All right.